this point.
Very nice.
So,
Quick before we lose him.
yeah. Yeah, he is in his car, so he's liable to make a quick getaway. Okay, Carrie, are we good?
Yep, you're now broadcasting.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. This is the September 21st, 2020 meeting of the Town of Newcastle Environmental Review Board. Present, myself, John Rosenblum, I'm the chair. And we have Ivan Alter and Ted Holmes, two other members of the board.
Upstairs, Paul James, make sure he's here.
So I guess the first order of business on our agenda tonight is the approval of the minutes from the July 20th ERB meeting. Ivan or Ted, were there any comments that either of you had on the minutes?
I did not.
No, me neither.
Okay. As is usually the case, I had a few typos that I picked up. Nothing substantive, which I will send over. I'll scan them and send them over to Dennis after the meeting. But without substantive comment, then can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved from the July 20 meeting. Okay, now the next item on the agenda is an application that's actually not before this board, but is before Dennis in his role as environmental coordinator. So Dennis, I'll turn this over to you to introduce this item.
Sure. I'm coming through, okay?
You're coming through
Yep.
fine.
Okay. So last year, a fence contractor for 58 Turner Drive stopped in our office to basically speak with, it ended up being the building department, just inquiring about fences and if there were permits necessary. And they instructed that, you know, they were not necessary with respect to a building permit. And I guess the fence ended up being installed. And then I had received a subsequent phone call after the installation, weeks later, from Dr. Rubin, just mentioning fence went in and should there have been a wetland permit, we weren't notified. And I didn't make the connection at that time because I really had no connection to make. And then when I had seen the fence went in and there wasn't a wetland permit, I guess I forgot who I contacted first, whether the residents, the Gushus of 58 Turner contacted me or the fence contractor or simultaneously. But when I saw him, he says, "Don't you remember me?" And I said, "Yes, I do. I remember when you came in, but I didn't know what you were talking about." So at that juncture, I suggested, well, I said, I think we really should move forward with an application. I said, obviously there's some requirements that are going to have to be satisfied that you may or may not have at this point. One, a wetland delineation of the property, which was performed. Two, having that wetland delineation overlaid onto a survey, along with the fence, which was also done. And then around the time of all of that unfolding, the extension of everything being protracted, you know, with the COVID phenomenon, I then had at one point received additional contact from Mrs. Gushu, who said, you know, we're thinking about putting in a patio, and now that we see, you know, a lot of our properties in the buffer, we think the patio is going to require a wetlands permit. So I had suggested at that point, well, why don't we make this comprehensive of the, you know, single application because the events, in terms of their timing, are happening relatively close to each other. So it would be better to, sort of have everything on the same application just so that I could evaluate it, simultaneously. And I'm sorry, okay. And so at this juncture, as the application was formally submitted and the certified mailings were completed, I was just receiving multiple requests to state a case or appear before or have the opportunity to speak to the Environmental Review Board. And I said, okay, I guess I could fulfill that, even though, as you had mentioned, this is an environmental coordinator permit at this stage.
Okay, so where does it stand now at this point, Dennis?
So I've done a few inspections, and as it stands now, we, myself and Mr. Gushu, I came up with basically a mitigation ratio and an opportunity area on his property, their property, excuse me, that falls actually within the limits of the wetlands, even though the impacts include both buffer area and, with respect to the fence, some wetland area. And so I basically instructed that, in order for me to, approve this application, I would need that mitigation to compensate for the impacts. Obviously, a perimeter enclosure is something that it's difficult to deny someone that wishes to do that, but I would look to sort of direct, in any case, if someone were to apply for something like that, what, especially if there's wetlands involved, what would be, considered a more minimal impact? If someone was looking to propose, like a high stone wall around their entire property and it's in wetlands, I would probably be a little more hesitant to just do something like that, because that's obviously more impact than, driving a post, which I kind of think of it now, I guess, as a piling, and just putting a mesh across something like that. The only issue I had with the fence that after it went in and doing a subsequent spring, well, I guess spring into summer, or maybe summer actually, investigation was there is a spot where the fence crosses past a intermittent water course, and in that spot, the fence, I guess due to its positioning relative to the ground, seemed to, serve as a screen, a debris screen for some of the vegetation. So, when that's flowing, which I did observe it flowing during winter, actually, it eventually discharges to the perennial stream. So I just made a suggestion that that's really my only, concern if there's water courses, just to make sure that a fence has sort of enough room between the ground and its bottom so that that water could just, pass through unimpeded and not, cause any pooling or spilling over into other areas where, maybe somebody, either the property owner or an adjacent property owner, wouldn't want that water to spill, pool onto.
Mm-hmm.
So they've agreed to, with obviously the help of their fence contractor, to ameliorate that problem.
Okay. Is there anything that the applicants would like to talk about before we hear from the Rubens? There any other neighbors? I'd thought that it was multiple that were interested in talking tonight.
Mr. Drake McFeely, I'm also a neighbor.
Okay. So if Mr. and Mrs. Gushu are interested in making any statements, we'd be happy to hear from you, and otherwise we'll turn it over to the neighbors.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you all. Yeah, so sorry, Dennis Gushu, 58 Turner Drive. Happy to be here. I appreciate working with Dennis over the last couple of months and really getting a better understanding of everything. So happy to continue to work on the mitigation plan there. I think from my perspective, honestly, the only thing that I have to say is that I'm sorry to my neighbors. I think, as you mentioned, it is, we just wanted to put up a fence for a variety of reasons. There was no harmful intent to our neighbors at all. And for the inconvenience that has perceived, obviously I apologize for any harm that you've perceived there. Our intention was never to be poor neighbors, and it's a shame that this is the way we be. So for that, I am sorry.
My name is Heather Gushu, and just wanted to introduce myself, and good evening, everybody. I just wanted to say that we did not intend to put the fence up without obtaining necessary permit and requirements being approved by the town. Like Mr. Corelli explains, we did have our fence contractor go to the town, and my understanding was that he asked if a wetlands permit was needed and was informed that it was not. And so we went ahead and installed the fence. I just wanted to note, pursuant to the wetlands ordinance in the town, we believe that the activities that we have taken has a minimal impact on the environment, and are ready, willing, able, and already working to perform the mitigation plan that Mr. Corelli has set forth. And unless the Environmental Review Board has any questions, which I don't think you would, because we're really just, the application is not before the board. But unless there are any questions for Mr. Corelli, I don't think that I don't have anything further to say.
Okay.
Could I ask, it's Drake McFeely again, 1067 Bridges Road. Heather said that the fence contractor said to Mr. Corelli that the fence was going through wetlands. Could I ask Mr. Corelli if that's true?
No, I'm sorry, Mr. McFeely, that's not what I said. What I had said was that our fence contractor went to the town and asked if a wetlands permit was required. And what I was told from my agent, the fence company, that he spoke with somebody there who pulled out a survey, and that on the survey, it didn't say that it was wetlands. It was informed that a wetlands permit was not needed. My understanding, I might not be correct because I wasn't there, but my understanding is that the representative of the town might have looked at some kind of survey that would delineate a wetlands as defined by New York state law, which now I'm learning is a different definition within the town of Newcastle. But we were told that a wetlands permit was not needed.
But you were told that, but Mr. Corelli was not aware that it was wetlands. Somebody looked at a map and assumed that it was not wetlands, but it's not as if your fence contractor went to Mr. Corelli and said, I'm working in wetlands, do I need a permit?
If our fence company was informed by a representative of the town, that is sufficient to form a belief and a basis from a representation from a town employee that the information being received is accurate. And I think that what happened then is unfortunate, but it shouldn't affect our application as it's pending before Mr. Corelli now.
I'm not a lawyer, but I do wonder if the office had the correct information.
Well, I could speak a little bit to this. I wasn't part of that conversation, not for any reason that somebody was looking to be devious or dubious. At that point, the building department and myself moving forward, not just with this particular project, but even with other projects, we've, you know, the wetlands issue is that, you know, when people see water, they're, you know, they figure out that there's wetlands, but there's a lot of wetlands that you're just never going to detect them as wetlands. So, you know, the building department, moving forward, not really as an inspiration for this, but other projects as well, unless it's, you know, properties that have previously been, you know, issued permits or have had a number in succession or have had to get a wetlands permit in the past. I think I'm getting wrapped in more, let's put it that way, to conversations that I think prior, that would be sort of how the investigation would have gone. Someone may have pulled out a survey. What they would have seen or wouldn't have seen, those would have been the limits, obviously, within the boundaries of that survey. And unless someone subsequently went on to, you know, Westchester GIS, which again is a mapping tool and may or may not have wetlands, at the end of the day, it's, you know, Dennis, go put your feet on the ground and tell us, you know, what you think. And that, honestly, I think is happening more and more, to do our best to try to prevent, you know, a situation like this where, you know, someone is, you know, surprised to learn, even after they've purchased the property, gee, we didn't know, and that's, you know, not uncommon, because not everybody obviously recognizes, you know, all types of wetlands. I can understand that. So I wasn't part of the conversation, but at the same time, it's not, wouldn't represent the first time that somebody had come and inquired in that fashion and, you know, got the answer that they got from our department.
Thank you. The reason I'm pushing this point is, I mean, the first I saw of the fence posts, the fence company was hacking through the bulrushes that run from my property across the line into 58 Turner. To the west of their house, the neighbor, there's a marsh. It is really, really hard to believe that an experienced fence contractor had no idea that he might possibly be in wetlands when he was doing this job. And that contractor perhaps could have been a little more forthcoming about what he was doing.
I agree with Trey. I mean, we added on to our house. We've lived here for almost 40 years. And when we added on to our house, because the family grew, we jumped through a whole bunch of hoops, and people came out and inspected, and we had to do certain things. I mean, it's pretty obvious. It's a stream and there's a swamp, and I think anybody who's living in the neighborhood would know that this is wetlands, and I would think that the fencer would. I'm a physician. I'm not an attorney either. I know Drake's a publisher, so he's
what do I
not an attorney either, a retired one. But one of my major objections is this fence is ugly as sin. And it goes really right up to the border. And where we formerly looked out on shrubs and trees and water, we now look on this ugly fence that's quite high. And I think, I think I would encourage, before anyone makes a decision about this, I think what one of you should do is come and look at this fence from all three properties that are next to it, and see what we're now going to be looking at. You know, I think it was very inconsiderate on your part, guys. When someone goes to put a fence up near us, they talk to us about it, and they put it up in such a way that we can't see it. Also doesn't force deer onto our property. But I think you guys should have said something to us. I mean, the first I knew about it was when they were out there. None of us had any chance to comment on this. Not very neighborly.
And we did write you,
We did
Drake,
write you,
and Drake
you
wrote you too.
You never
You
even
didn't
wrote us back.
respond.
He never said anything to us. He wrote you a letter saying, what's going on?
That's absolutely right. And I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
No,
No.
hold on. So I walked over to everyone's houses when we were starting to do the work, to speak with you personally. We should have wrote a letter. We didn't have email address. We didn't have phone numbers. We'd never even met any of you, to be quite honest, even though we've lived here for 5 years. So we really didn't have a formal way of getting in touch. It honestly didn't occur to me to send a big formal letter, because to me, it was not that big a deal. We have 3 very young children, and life got away from us really quickly as we were putting up the fence. So you're right, it was not considered, it was not neighborly, and we should have. I don't know that that would have changed the place that we're in right now, but you're right. That was the decent thing to do. I did make an attempt, although it wasn't. It didn't achieve the result, and I'm sorry for that.
Well, then, the other thing then is
I do
maybe-
want to
maybe-
note though that Mr. McFeely and I did walk the property and had a discussion, and I was under the impression when I explained where the fence was gonna be that he was okay with it. And I just wanted to make note of that.
Yeah, but if we're gonna go there, then you have to say that the first sign we had of anything going on was surveyors running up and down the property line. And as I say, the next thing was the bulrushes being cut down. I think they were down by the time you and I walked that line.
I think
If I,
the bull-
again, I don't understand the legalities of this. And frankly, I'm not that interested, but I think at the very least, you could put some foliage up on our side of the fence and Franco's side of the fence. They're the third person who is not here tonight. And that fence goes right up to their line. They look out from their deck, and that fence is what, 30 feet from their deck, 40 feet? It's close. And there used to be a lot of brush there. So at least you could put up the landscape.
And the trees, the trees down, and you go down Turner Drive, you can see their whole backyard. They have no privacy left. I hope
I
you
mean,
can replace
they
it.
can speak for themselves, but I think
I would just like to note that, first of all, the purpose that we're here today is for Mr. Corelli, who is the environmental coordinator, who is the approving authority, so that he can ensure that the purpose of the wetlands ordinance is satisfied and that there is mitigating and minimal environmental issues by our proposed activity. And that is what our intent is, and that is what Mr. Corelli's position and purpose is in reviewing this application. I would like to note that, speaking about Mr., I'm not sure of his name, Franco, there was no brush down there that was removed to install the fence. And what somebody might view subjectively as ugly or intrusive in their view shed should not play a role in whether or not the purpose of Chapter 137 is served here. And with Mr. Corelli's assistance, that is what we will be doing. We will be taking mitigation and activity to ensure that the wildlife and the habitat is maintained.
well, again, you're talking about a legal definition that I have no understanding of.
I don't
I'm
think,
talking about the aesthetics of it. The aesthetics of it are, it's an ugly fence. I think if you took 100 people and had them look at that fence, 100 of them will say, that's an ugly fence. And that's the only point that I'm going to make. The legality of it, that's up to you guys. But it is an ugly fence.
But it would be nice if the committee could come take a look.
Yeah, oh, right.
We took a look when we did our
I think-
addition. They-
again, I would note though that the application is not before the Environmental Review Board.
I don't know what that means. I did this thing.
Hey, could I back up and just ask the chair of the board sort of what the purview is on this issue? Because I'm very happy to address any of your concerns directly. I certainly hope that Mr. Corelli is doing his job the way that it ought to be done, because I find it very difficult to believe that that fence is not in violation of some issues, but Dennis Corelli would know a lot better than I would about those particular micro issues. So I'm just wondering what the questions are that the board would have.
Well, again, this is an application, as we've been saying, that's before Dennis in his role as coordinator, and Dennis is the town's expert in these areas, in defining what wetlands are and applying day to day the specifics of the ordinance. And he's the one. Dennis has been there. To be frank with you, I think the applicants, Dr. Rubin, are right that technically aesthetics are not part of the analysis in determining what the conditions would be on a permit here. That's not to say that frequently in the course of analyzing applications like this and coming up with whether it's the environmental coordinator at his level or applications that do come before us, aesthetics and the concerns related to aesthetics the neighbors express frequently come into play in a more informal way in the conversation. When we as a board or the environmental coordinator are charged with developing appropriate mitigation, there are times that the mitigation, while specifically aimed at mitigating environmental and wetland impacts, may also serve to allay or mollify certain aesthetic concerns. There's no one way to do these things. So I guess, I'll ask whether, Ted or Ivan have any thoughts on this, but, otherwise I would just encourage Dennis in developing the terms and conditions and mitigation for this permit to do what might be possible to do within what the ordinance prescribes and see whether something can be worked out. Look, this is a neighbor situation. Nobody wants to have this kind of unfortunate situation. I would encourage Dennis to see what could be worked out in terms of the mitigation for the permit.
That sounds very fair to me.
That's my 2 cents at this
Yeah,
point. But
I agree.
again, please understand that our role here is only really advisory, because it's Dennis's it's Dennis's permit at this point.
Thank you. So I'm just putting stakes in the wetlands, putting a fence down a couple of lines in the wetlands that's for Dennis to have. You don't get involved with whether water is allowed to flow where it ought to flow, or deer are allowed to move where they have always moved, or the kinds of questions that I would have guessed are ERB kinds of issues.
Well, I think Dennis already mentioned that he had a little concern about the flow of the stream and that was going to be addressed. Yes, perhaps the situation with wildlife and other plant impacts are also appropriate for him to be addressing. But
okay, no, thank you for the explanation. I appreciate that.
Ivan, Ted?
And by the way, thank you guys I know you work hard and probably not for a whole lot of pay on this board. I appreciate that.
So yeah, everything you said, John, is what I would, agree with as well.
Yeah, I think, procedurally, it's challenging for us as a board, especially at this stage where it's a permit application. But I do think that there's already been a dialogue now started between the neighbors, and there is going to be action considered with regard to mitigation, and that can take many forms. And it sounds like some of the opportunities might be ones that could meet the needs of everybody here. So I would encourage all of you, the neighbors to keep up the communication. Dennis is, better versed than anyone here to apply the wetland law and to make sure that the watershed and the natural elements are protected, but doing so in a way that would be satisfactory to the people involved is going to require you guys participating. So.
Yeah. I don't have a lot of faith.
Is there a town way is there a way to do that through the town, or is it just, we've got to have more communications? Because there's really been no communication between,
Well, I think it would be Dennis's role to coordinate if there are, conversations that you want to have with Dennis, feel free to contact him. If you want to have direct conversations among yourselves, moderated by Dennis. I mean, there's no real, Dennis is the one who has to end up issuing the permit. How you get there and what the conversations are, what the communications are between you and the town, between you and your neighbors, is really up to you and Dennis.
But in theory, and I don't want to put it because I know you have other things to do and it's late. In theory, this could be, say, so the fence is approved, but it's approved that you've got to put in, this shrub, that shrub, extra ferns, whatever.
Correct. Typically, as part of the application, part of the permit, there will be conditions put on the permit. There will be plans developed. And to the extent that, for instance, there's a change has to be made in either the location or the structure of the fence, there'll be plans, drawings put together that detail exactly what that's going to be. If there are planting plans, those will be specified in a plan. No, all of that gets detailed in the permit itself.
And Dr. Rubin, I've already started mitigating. Like, I've walked the property many, many times, and I know, you both have seen it. And Drake, same as you. I mean, my goal has been to make it look nice, and we've already started in the back by Franco's in removing invasive species. I've thorns and poison ivy all over my arms, and trying to eliminate the things that Dennis had pointed out that are invasive to all our properties, and I've already planted wildflower seeds all over it. So my expectation with that is that it's going to look beautiful, right? And there will be natural wildlife that's native to the area that we could look upon.
That sounds great to me. It'll look beautiful on your side of the fence, but Franco's only going to be looking through that black mesh at the beautiful flowers on your side. This affects him more than it affects us. We're just the oldest people.
Actually, Dr. Rubin, the fence is not as intrusive as Mr. Corelli said that some fences could be. And regardless of that, I would be happy, I'll provide you with my email address, phone number, and I would be happy also, Mr. McFeely, if, we could have a dialogue and further discuss this offline and not, let the Environmental Review Board take over. I do appreciate the forum that the board has provided for us to have this conversation.
Well, why don't we let them get to their work, because they've got, I don't know how many more you have to do. I have a son-in-law who's an alderman out in Illinois. I understand what you guys do and how late you work and how little recompense you get for it in any fashion. But we do appreciate you. We do appreciate all that you guys do. We appreciate you letting us air this out.
And thank you, Dennis, for all your help, many conversations and emails.
And how you do this through Zoom is beyond me.
Dennis, so you will follow up?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the code doesn't prevent planting, with the exception of, certain species that frankly, I think at this point are considered prohibited in New York State and may not even be sold in New York State. So again, to quickly summarize, I think what everybody's trying to say is that, you know, not every property, not every project, it's not a flat checkbox where, okay, wetland this, mitigate that. Some of the properties obviously have certain opportunities where I think, you know, one plan or one approach would work better than another. And, you know, frankly, I'm sorry about the aesthetic, because that does fall down on the list of, you know, how does it affect the wetland? And it just so happened on this particular property, and it is in that lower section, I was, you know, it was overgrowth, which may visually have served some purpose to someone, but I'm like, wow, it's visual overgrowth of everything that doesn't grow in this country and is considered, you know, not only non-native, but also invasive. I'm like, this seems like great out, and it happens to be in the wetland, you know. So it's kind of the opportunity presented itself, and that's why that became the focus. I know from sitting in on planning board meetings and whatever, there is definitely more conflation than I would like, where people start throwing the words around landscaping, mitigating, green screen, and I'm, you know, I kind of just sit on my hands sometimes, because I'm like, you guys are throwing down different terms, different purposes, different functions, but you're trying to make it all, you know, fit nice on the same plate. And it's hard. It's hard to do that, I think. So.
If since I said deviated symptom wasn't right, or I said cleft palate and deviated symptom.
Well, somebody should mute, I think, who's, okay. All right, well, Dennis, you'll coordinate from here. And that'll include making sure that there's adequate contact with the Rubens and the other neighbors.
Yeah, I mean, I would look to offer, you know, I mean, we obviously have a code, excuse me, an appendix reference in the tree code. You know, it's like, I don't know if I provided it already to negotiators, but it's like a recommended tree and shrub list. And it just so happens that, you know, a number of those shrubs on the list are actually hydrophytic species. So, you know, they may work out if you choose to go that route. You know, I'm not going to worry about nor regulate plantings per se. I mean, you know, people are allowed to plant their properties, whether they're wetlands or not, you know. So, and you know, maybe in this case, it does help to serve a dual purpose, you know, in addition to the mitigation.
Okay. Good. Then Dennis will follow up, and you know, we're always here if anybody has questions, concerns, you can get to us as well. All right, but thanks for coming in, and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
everyone.
Have a good night.
Thanks. Yeah.
Take care.
Thanks.
Phone number that I have is email. Want it?
Okay. Next item on the agenda is Parrick, the 49 Kitchell Road.
Yes, hi, I'm Peter Kurth. I'm the architect representing Mr. Aaron Parrick, who's also with us. We have responded to Mr. Corelli's comment at the July meeting. We are respectfully requesting a tree permit and a wetlands permit so that we may restore the front of the property to its intended state. With winter approaching, the cool weather, we wanted to get it done this fall. After the July meeting, we got excellent feedback from Mr. Corelli. He responded promptly with a list of requests for new information. And with that, myself, my office, and Mr. Parrick and his landscaper met at the site and discussed the issues that were requested at the July meeting. Primary was the location of all drains that were observed on the property, including the outlets of those drains and how it impacted or did not impact on the wetlands area. We also decided at that meeting to drastically reduce the size of the wall. The wall at the July meeting was of great concern to the board, and we decided to reduce that wall by 75%, thereby eliminating the concern that many board members have about the distance from the wall to the wetlands, etc. We also reduced the height of the wall because that also came up. At the July meeting, there was also discussions about the structural integrity of the walls, some of which were proposed, some of which were existing. And we hired an engineer who visited the site and prepared detailed drawings, diagrams, and calculations describing the proposed wall. With the new submission, the new drawings shows all of the outlets that were requested. It shows the new wall, which is now 40 feet long, and it also shows that the height of the wall was reduced. The wetlands issues mentioned by Mr. Corelli were addressed by our wetlands consultant, Paul Janig, who in his submission addressed all, I believe, I know he had conversations with Mr. Corelli, creating cross sections through the property, changing some of the notes, the stream check dams were removed, and other items that were requested by Mr. Corelli. So with this submission, we believe that we have satisfied the board's concerns.
Dennis?
Yes,
Have you reviewed what's been changed and the modifications to the plan and the new drawings, et cetera?
yes.
And what's your reaction?
A significant reduction in impact, and obviously just the proposed project itself. And I believe, reasonable. There's still a mitigation plan in place, which I was happy to see. I did mention to the building inspector today that this application was on the agenda tonight. I did put the updated submission, into the building permit file, so that, this now represents the new project. It's not the magnitude of the prior project. He was, obviously interested in, which I'm glad they got on the drawing, some of the piping and the discharges and where that piping is and what it does. And I haven't had a chance to speak with the engineers, but, he will be more than happy, I'm sure, to look at what's provided for the wall. Because engineers just like looking at that stuff. And in addition to, I think it obviously serves a purpose to this particular project.
Okay. Do you have any remaining concerns based on what we discussed at the last meeting, or is it, at this point, are we just waiting for the building department and the engineers to take a look and bless this as well from their point of view?
That seems a fair assessment at this point.
I'm sorry, you say that again?
That seems a fair statement, fair assessment at this point, yes.
Okay. So based on what we expressed at the July meeting, you don't have any remaining concerns?
No, I mean, to Mr. Cook's credit, when, you know, on a couple occasions when they've had to respond, they make it convenient in that they provide the original comment and then, you know, how they address that comment. So I don't believe there's anything hanging, which is good. And then what they did address, I'm satisfied with how it was addressed.
Okay. So now, correct me, was there ever a violation here?
I never formally issued one. The building department just had, you know, went to the site and just ordered to stop work until, you know, applications could be filed and we could have the opportunity to review what was being proposed.
Okay, so the only thing that's on the table at this point are the actual applications?
Yeah.
Okay. Ted, Ivan, any questions, any comments?
My only question is, you said that you had reduced the size of the stone wall by half. Do you mean in terms of the height of the stone wall?
No, no, sir. I said the length of the wall was reduced.
Oh, the length of the wall, I see, the amount of
by
wall.
75%.
Okay,
And the height was reduced slightly, by, in some cases, 1 foot less, in some cases, 2.5 feet less. And that's shown on the drawings.
I don't have any questions.
Okay. All right, well, then Dennis, my suggestion, I think would be that we can conditionally approve the permits subject to your coordination with and approval of the other aspects of the applications by the building department. Would be my suggestion. We obviously can't move ahead until we do get sign off on those issues. But perhaps it makes sense to approve the permit being issued on a provisional basis to be finalized once you get sign off from the building department. Does that make sense to you guys, Ivan, Ted?
Yes.
Okay, can I have a motion to that effect?
Yeah, that makes sense. Motion. Sorry, I guess got distracted.
To approve subject to the building department's.
Second.
Okay, so we would be instructing Dennis to provisionally approve the permit subject to the final approval of the building and engineering department, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Dennis.
Okay, thank you very much.
Let us know if there's any significant changes. But we're good. Okay.
Thank you.
We'll let them know.
Thank you, everybody. Dennis, you'll then get back to us and let us know when you connect with the building department and the other departments you need to talk to?
Well, what's going to happen now is that I'll inform them of what occurred at this meeting. And there's a file, obviously, for this particular project. And in that file is all the submissions that you included tonight. And that's what's going to have to be reviewed. The engineer is going to focus on the wall. And, you know, Thomas is obviously going to, I think, you know, be more focused on the site, the layout, septic, you know, where, you know, some of the drainage piping, et cetera, as everything is, you know, according to his okay and approval. The wall is definitely the town engineer.
Okay, so you'll be back in touch with us.
Yes. Or if, they need to contact you or your professionals, if they had a particular question, they would probably just do so.
Okay, so if I could, so we're being approved for the tree permit and the wetlands permit. What would you request of the professionals? Is this an inter-office situation between you and the building inspector, the engineering, or do you need any additional information from us?
I would say at this time, no, and possibly during their review, no. Possibly, yes. I mean, it's entirely up to them. So,
okay. And if I may ask, what do you think, Mr. Corelli, the time frame would be for that ultimate decision? The homeowner really wants to get the property restored as soon as possible.
Then you are free to call the building inspector and the town engineer, and again, I'll probably see them and convey this to them before you do, but you're free to call them and ask them and let them know of your situation.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, thanks. Bye. Great, thank you, bye, guys.
Okay.
All right, take care. Good night.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, next, new application. Berman, 92 Oak Hill Road. Who's here on that?
Bill,
Mr. Spade?
John, how you doing?
I'm well, how are you?
We're doing good, thank you. Everybody's healthy, thank you. Hope the same there.
Glad to hear it.
I'm here this evening, and Scott Berman, the property owner, is also on. And so I'll talk quickly through what we're proposing. This is property on Oak Hill Road. It's the cul-de-sac at the very end of the road. And Mr. Berman owns the property sort of to the left side of the cul-de-sac. The house itself sits about 6 or 8 feet down gradient from the cul-de-sac. And then the property continues down gradient from where the house sits about another 20 feet to a ravine. And so that's the subject matter in terms of some wetland areas in this ravine. But quickly, what we're proposing to do are 3 exterior projects. The first, on the rear of the house, will be constructing a screened porch on an existing deck that's raised up to the first floor level of the house. That deck is about 10 feet above grade on the rear of the house. The grade is at the basement level and then continues downhill from even there. This existing deck sits above another deck that is at basement level. So in fact, there's no footprint that's of this proposed porch that's going to affect the ground, other than installing, I think, a total of 3 posts through the existing deck to support the new porch. But otherwise, the lower deck is completely below this existing, the proposed screen porch that we're going to construct. There's this existing upper deck is about 12 feet wide by 16 feet deep. We're going to widen it by another 7 feet, again, above this existing lower deck, to create a 9 foot wide by 16 foot screen porch. We show that on the survey. I'll quickly mention the other 2 components we're proposing, and all of these, by the way, are within the 100-foot buffer from the delineated wetlands. So all require a wetland permit to construct them. The second piece is an approximately 20-foot by 20-foot on-grade patio in the left side yard. The corner of that patio is about 65 feet from the wetland, the edge of the wetlands. And again, that's a completely on-grade stone patio. We'll have to construct a couple of probably 18-inch high retaining walls on the upper end and the lower end to retain grade at either end of that patio. But otherwise, it's relatively on grade in the side yard. The third component that we're proposing to build is a porch across the front of the house. Presently, there's a small porch at the front door that's about 7 feet wide. And so kind of just wide enough to get up at the porch and go in the door. The Bermans would like to construct a porch all across the main part of the house. So that ends up to be about 45 feet wide and to come out about 8 feet from the face of the house. And that would be a relatively on-grade, stone paver finished porch floor within a roof structure built above it, a sloped roof off the face of the house, and with columns along the face of the porch to support the roof. The 100-foot wetland buffer, if you see from the survey, extends from the wetland line in the rear yard to pretty much the front face of the proposed porch. So that almost the entire portion of that, the front porch is within the 100-foot buffer. So the wetland permit is required for that. The ground in that area is presently planted with predominantly boxwood bushes and mulch. So it would be removing the boxwood bushes and mulch and actually relocating them to along the new stone patio on the side yard, and then essentially constructing the front porch in that same area. Again, maybe just an important point about the wetlands. As I said, in the rear yard, the wetlands are about 45 feet from the rear face of the existing decks and about 20 feet down gradient from the existing, essentially basement level of the house and the lower deck. That area, that 45 feet of ground area, that's a 20-foot slope, is predominantly trees and other kinds of natural foresty vegetation. There's no lawn there. There's no there's no other types of plantings in that area other than the sort of natural plantings. And then in this ravine at the bottom of the hill is an area of wetland vegetation. That ravine, by the way, is not an active stream, is not an active water course, even though it shows up that way. And Steve has looked at this, or Dennis has looked at this, and it is not an active water course, but it is a intermittent drainage area, as you can imagine, in this kind of ravine. And therefore, just with the low-lying topography there, the wetland area has existed, but it's really well confined into the base of the ravine there.
Is that natural, Bill?
Sorry?
Is that natural, or was the drainage, was it constructed when the neighborhood was developed?
It looks natural to me. The house appears to be built on the hillside, maybe with a leveling of the pad of the house, but that hillside behind the house looks very natural down to that ravine, and it's a it's obviously a fairly steep ravine, and then back up the other side. And then there are houses at the top of the hill on the other side of the ravine.
Mhm. So the rear patio, or I'm sorry, the rear screen porch creates no additional footprint?
Correct.
The additional footprint would be created by the patio, the stone patio, and the porch that's to be built on the front of the house.
Correct.
Those would both be extension. Have you computed the amount of disturbance that would be caused by those two pieces of the project?
I did at one point, and it's not right in front of me, but I'll tell you, it's 400 square feet, maybe 410 square feet for the patio. And then that front porch is 45.6 by 8. So that's 364 plus 410 is roughly 775 square feet of disturbance area.
Mm-hmm.
Direct impervious area.
Right. And does your plan include any suggested mitigation for that?
Not yet, no.
Okay. Have you had any conversations with Dennis about that, or is this?
Not directly yet. I know Dennis I think he's had a chance to look at the property, so I think that would be the next conversation.
I got out there today and took some notes, if that helps, yeah.
Okay. What's your initial reaction, Dennis?
Yeah, there seems to be, which is shown that the fence towards the back kind of, it's on slope and separates from the lower wetland area. So from working back from the fence to the house, the hillside, it's a mix of things, some of which are native and beneficial, others are non-native and I think provide opportunity for removal and planting that would be consistent with some of the vegetation that's already there. There was a couple fern species. I didn't have my fern book with me. I think one I'm confident was Christmas fern. The other, I think, might have been lady fern. There was one good sized healthy bayberry shrub. So, and a lot of hemlocks, mature hemlocks are there providing the shade. So I think, where there is no area of the project proposed in that back area there, I think there's, potential because, as Bill pointed out, you're going to have a patio to the side. There's going to be some regrading with that. Those boxwoods that were there, I guess, are going to be moved. That little jog that exists that's considered new lower deck, I think I think there might have been a rhododendron in there. I don't see that surviving. And then where the front patio is, there's actually a number of nice woody developed plantings of, I had here, there was one hydrangea, a number of meadowsweet, and, some thick holly shrubs. So, in loss of that, as a result of the, front porch going in, again, I was, it's a planting bed, but it's a planting bed of all good things and developed, vegetation that happens to be, as you could see, sort of encircled within the buffer. So, to keep it contiguous, I'd like to try to maybe, get some area towards the back because I think it, makes sense with respect to, it's part of the slope to the wetland, and it obviously moves away from areas of the project that, I'm not looking to necessarily, crowd vegetation onto that, may not serve the same purpose and function, frankly. My only comment would be, which I know the project is not proposed anywhere around these areas, but I did find a survey, or actually the building inspector found for me. Bill, if you could just, for clarity purposes, overlay the septic onto this so that we don't, we just stay away from it, even in terms of, if somebody wanted to point out an area and say, oh, can we plant that with something? We just want to make sure that, we don't put or propose anything woody, obviously, in that area, so.
Okay.
Is there any concern about runoff? I know that, obviously there's new impervious surface being built, but also in building a structure with a roof above what's an existing wooden deck. I know we define that as impervious, but in terms of, what actually happens to the water when it hits an asphalt roof versus a wooden deck, is there any concern about, either retaining that runoff or directing that runoff? Where will that runoff go?
Yeah, onto the hillside. So we could propose, sort of stone channel structures to help treat that water off the roof. Right now, obviously, it goes onto the deck and then through the deck onto the ground underneath the deck. So certainly we can propose to do, riprap channels at the outlet of the downspouts.
And there's the wetland, as you said, it's like a drainage swale, essentially.
Yeah, I would call it the ravine, right?
Ravine.
Yeah.
And it's only seasonally wet?
Correct.
And it doesn't flow?
Does not. Yeah, it's just during, in even the end of the wetlands, kind of in the middle of the property, the grade also slopes up to the right side of the property. So this is really kind of the beginning of the low section of that ravine. So the water, I think, tends to just come down the hill from all sides. Not an active water course from anywhere.
Steve, could you mute your line, please? Steve Coleman? Great. Okay, go ahead, Bill. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just saying, that's kind of the beginning of this area of wetlands continuing to the south. And so there's no water course coming to this from somewhere else. It's just collecting the drainage and beginning from here.
Mm-hmm.
And that was confirmed by, the wetland delineation.
Okay, well, I don't think that we have any, any issues in concept with this. I would note that the area in the front of the house, while technically in the buffer, is away from the wetland and has the house between it and the wetland. So I'm not sure how significant the disturbance is in terms of any real effect on the wetland. Little bit concerned about the completely impervious surface of the patio. But again, I think that that's something that can probably be mitigated with appropriate plantings and other work that Dennis might think would be advisable. But, it sounds like you still have a little bit of work to do on this. And I guess I would suggest that, rather than issuing a permit tonight, that you go back, work with Dennis, try and finalize some mitigation, deal with the stormwater for what it is, the treatment of the water coming off the roof of the new porch, and come back with a modified plan that's got a little more detail to it in terms of the mitigation next month. And, we perhaps, be willing to go forward and issue the permit at that point.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Oh, no, okay.
Okay.
All right, sounds good to us. Dennis, anything else you want to say?
My only other comment was, which I'm sure I could get from you in case I didn't see, which, just may help me in terms of for the wetland. I didn't see a delineation report or whatever the write-up was with respect to just, and if there is one, I would just, like to review it and
Okay.
see what was there.
Yeah, we had one. I thought I submitted that, but if you didn't see it, I'll definitely get that to you right away.
Okay, that was it.
Okay. Thank you.
Good.
Have a good night.
You
Thank
too.
you, Don.
You too.
We'll
Good to
see
see you. Thanks for coming in,
Thank you. Bye-bye.
so to speak.
Ah.
And then there was one.
And then there was one. Okay. Mr. Barrett,
Good evening, everyone.
get on.
We're here tonight to discuss the Barg swimming pool with the ERB. Alan Pilch is the project engineer and Stephen Coleman is assisting us with the wetland mitigation preparation. So I am going to try to share a screen and see what happens.
You're ahead of all the other applicants, Jerry, so don't worry about it. Who wants to do this?
Let's see.
I think we're-
Can anyone see that?
Yes.
Oh, how about that? Okay.
Can you
Thank
blow
you,
it
Dennis.
up? Okay.
Don't speak too soon because I still may screw up. Okay, so we talked with the board about this some time ago, and this was an ongoing project. The board will recall, we actually made it a new application. We had basically withdrew the other application before the planning board. I'm pretty sure we did that, Dennis, but I'll go back and check. And so we decided to start fresh as a new application. So what we have here is we have we have the property survey here. The wetlands have been delineated. You have the state wetland in here, and then you have a little nub in here, which is the town regulated wetlands, and that gives us a buffer line that comes like this, and the state wetland line continues this way, but we have to go by this one. This is the town's wetland line. So you could see where we're trying to get that pool, right, to get that in there. So we're trying to get the pool out of the buffer, but we are going to be encroaching into the wetland for the pool patio and a few of the other features.
The buffer.
That's right, the buffer. This is an aerial. I think it gives you a good idea what's happening here. This is where we want to put the pool. This is a mowed lawn. This is the septic area here. Here's the driveway, which we are going to end up kind of shifting back a little bit to make more room for the pool. This is when you have a pool in a front yard from a zoning point of view, I think you have to increase the, I think you have to triple it, the front setback. So we're okay with that. That's what this red line represents. And just while we're on the subject of zoning, when we did run the coverage calculations, we noticed that as a result of adding more coverage, development coverage from the pool and the patio, we will go over the allowable coverage, and we will need a slight variance from the zoning board. And providing we can get through this board, we'd like to go to the zoning board. My argument to the zoning board would be the reason why this property is over on development coverage, because they had to build this very long driveway to get to the upland area where they built the house. So I think it's a good argument, and that's what we plan on trying if we get that far. Okay, so this is our site plan, and this is a site plan that we reviewed with the board last time. And I think the board was generally comfortable with it. We showed a couple of different things here. We showed, this was where the Ticehurst plan way back when showed a pool. This was where the buyers had the pool actually in the wetland. She had the spa over here in the buffer. And what we did was we tried to keep, again, here's that yellow line, and you can see we've got that pool nestled right in there as best we can, trying to keep space between the building. And then what we've done is we've kind of moved this driveway. We kind of shifted as close to the house as we could. And so we ended up shifting the driveway over. For instance, this is the edge of the driveway now, and now it's going to be over here. And, you know, we'll be taking up lawn, and we'll be taking up portions of the driveway here and turning it into plantings. So we went through it. This is the pool. This is this is the spa. They'll both have auto covers on it. The pool equipment's going to be over here. It's going to be state-of-the-art pool equipment. It's going to be sterilization, ultraviolet light, and ozone. And that sterilizes the water as it passes through, but you still need a brominator to put a little bit of bromine into the water, because that keeps a residual chemical in the water to keep that water clean. But it is probably the best sterilization practice for using the minimal amount of chemicals to sterilize your pool water. And it will be a cartridge type filter, meaning there's no backwashing. The guys just come, they take that cartridge out, they hose it off, they stick it back in, and that's it. There will be a new propane tank that will be installed right in this area here. And let's see, we're going to have a little built-in kitchen in this area. The last time we were in front of the board said, what can you do to cut down on some of the paving? And so what we did was we had a little notch out here for a bench, and we took that out. And this corner over here, we had this corner here used to be all paved, and we knocked that out. So we took about 140 feet of pool paving out. We did discuss the possibility of doing a permeable pool deck, permeable pavers, but that became problematic because I think, and Alan could talk to this better than me, but I think there's like a 50-foot separation distance from this septic to that, and that wasn't going to work. But Alan's going to chat with you guys in just in a minute, and he will explain to you what he's done. He's gone out there with the town, and he's gotten a stormwater management system to work right in this area here. So, this is, we'll be putting our mitigation plantings. We'll be converting, taking all this grass out here, and we're going to turn that into more plantings. We're going to take out this playhouse here. We're going to get rid of that. So that takes the impervious stuff, the impervious area down. We're going to be replanting this area too. Right now, it's kind of like weedy and grassy. So those are types of things we're doing. We did an erosion control plan, and simply we will ring the whole area with silt fencing. We'll have a tracking pad in this area. Everything will be done right in the work area, right in here. So I think we'll be able to contain that pretty well. We'll have some fencing up to make sure nobody goes on that septic area. And we went through and we tried to calculate out the buffers. And what we did was we broke the buffers into what we call a permanent impact to the buffer and a temporary impact. The difference being where you see red, this is areas it's grass now, and that will be changed to paving. So that's a permanent change in cover type. So we call that a permanent impact. Whereas the other impacts, for instance, where Alan will be putting in his stormwater infiltrators, it's lawn now, and after the infiltrators are in, it'll go back to lawn. And the same thing with the driveway. This is the edge of the driveway. So this is the part of the driveway that we're going to take out, and then this is the part of the driveway that we're going to make new. And then this is the part of the driveway that's still going to be driveway. But, when we do this, we'll cut the driveway here and pave this whole section. We won't have like 3 pieces. We'll just pave the whole thing. So what we found was that we actually had a little bit of increase in a little bit of an increase in the area that we're working, principally because, now that Alan, our buffer disturbance went up a little bit because we didn't have this on the plan the last time. The last time we talked with the board said, go figure out your stormwater and come back to us. So that's what we did. But, you know, we did knock down, by changing this driveway around, we did take out about, we just eliminated 224 square feet of driveway by doing this. And then we also increased what we had for mitigation. We had, last time we were proposing about 2,000 square feet. Now we're up to 3,300 square feet, because the last time we were before the board, we didn't have this area of proposed new mitigation. And we put that in because we said, let's put that in because we're going to be disturbing this area here. So we will buffer this area in here. So, you know, we think we have a plan that works, and we hope the board concurs with us, and so that we can move along. And with that, maybe Alan, you want to explain what you did with the stormwater?
Sure. I'm Alan Pilch, LP Engineering. Maybe what I can do is maybe you can put the sheet up.
How's that?
I could do the share also, but yeah, that's perfect. So for stormwater management, what we have done is that's perfect. There are, I'll call it slot drains and a couple catch basins in the pool patio area, and they convey the runoff into chambers, which are lying immediately adjacent to the pool patio, the upper end of it actually. And so basically what happens is all the runoff from the pool patio and the pool cover end up into the proposed chambers. There are 12 Cultec 100 chambers that are being proposed. We did do percolation tests and deep hole tests. They were witnessed by Terry Rowe, the civil engineering technician, assistant to Bob Cioli. And when we dug the deep hole test, which is located in the northern part of it, it says DH1. We actually dug down to 7 feet below grade. We did encounter groundwater at 7 feet, and it was at 6.5 feet that it rose to 6.5 feet below grade. And we did a percolation test and actually got very fast percolation rates in the range of 20 inches per hour. It was kind of a sandy soil. So what we did is we put in a shallow chamber in order to ensure that we had 3 feet of unsaturated soil between the bottom of the chamber and the groundwater table, which we now know from the deep hole testing. We also made sure that the chambers were located at least 50 feet away from the septic system, because that's a requirement of the Westchester County Department of Health. And every time I've ever spoken with Bob Cioli or Terry Rowe, they say to me, chambers are more than 50 feet away, correct? And yes, I would say, yes, they are. So that's what's being proposed as an outlet from the chambers. What we have proposed is call it a small catch basin, kind of regulate the flow, just to make sure the chambers actually fill up. And then it goes to a pop-up emitter, which you can see right there. It is within the wetland buffer, but basically what happens is if there's any excess flow that goes into the chambers, it'll just be actually discharge into the new planting area that Jerry's proposing. So that's what will happen there. And you can see on that plan too, the location of a design point in the upper left. That's where we modeled the runoff to that point. And what we were able to demonstrate in the stormwater report was that following the, with the mitigation measure, the chambers in place, that the peak rate of runoff and the volume of runoff going into that design point are actually less than at present. And so that's kind of like how the stormwater management plan functions. It basically picks up all the new impervious surfaces and puts them into the chambers. And I think it'll be very effective because we had good sandy soil there. And so that's basically what the plan is. Any other?
So Alan,
yeah.
If you said it, I didn't hear it. Can you point out? Jerry said that you would explain why making the patio consisted of pervious pavers wouldn't work.
It's
I
this
think what'll
dimension right
happen-
here, John.
I think because of the proximity to I think it would be counted as a stormwater management facility, being that way, because it would be collected and treated, if you will, within 50 feet of the septic system. I know you'll say that, well, the lawn is there, but I think
It's not treated. It would just be going down through the blocks to the wall, to the lawn, to the dirt,
Right.
to the lawn.
Well, let's put it this way. If the town engineer would buy it, I'd be more than happy to, provide some of the chambers to be that way. But I think that's really the concern, because the town engineer would say, I'm just telling you, he would say, I need to test it. I need to make sure that it percolates, that there's depth to, he wants to know what the depth of the subsurface is, the stone underneath it, and he'll see it as being a place where it may be, I'll say collected.
Well,
That would be an issue.
If I could just jump in, when we had an initial meeting, Alan came in to help us out after our original engineer passed. And at that meeting, we talked about that pervious paving, and Bob Scioli, he came right out and said, I consider the permeable paving a stormwater practice, and it cannot be within 50 feet of the pool, of the septic field. So that kind of put the kibosh on that.
Are you aware of that, Dennis? Dennis?
That statement sounds familiar. I'll leave it at that.
No matter what, I think that the town engineer will consider it a stormwater practice and will want to ensure that it's 50 feet away. I understand where you're coming from, I really do. But I think from the practical nature of it, if we're not 50 feet away from the septic system, there's the concern on his part that there will be some interference with the ability of the septic system to function as it's supposed to.
Let me just interject, because now as things flood my head, Jerry, you came or presented this at a pre-app, if I recall. Is that when Bob was making
Yep. Yeah.
these statements?
I was there. Barry Naderman was there.
Right.
I think you guys were all around the table, Bob.
In the building, right? We weren't in Zoom land yet, right? This
That's
was
right.
in the
We
building.
were in town hall in the old days. You're right. Around the
Right.
big table.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I recall that, something to that effect. So it's more coming to me now, yes, okay.
All right, because that, the impervious nature of that portion of the patio was something that was really concerning to us.
And that is one of the reasons why we took out this area here and we took out that. We did knock it down by 142 square feet. And if you just look at this schematic, look at how little patio we actually have in the buffer. We really don't have that much. Most of it's outside. Most of it's in, almost all of it, John, is, it's only the red area that's in the buffer.
I know, we don't like seeing any of it in there though.
I know. It's a tough site. We're doing the best we can.
But patio is pure aesthetics. So.
Well, except you have to have a place to walk around the pool.
Yeah. Why is that portion of the patio that's marked C? Why is that? Can that be cut back?
Where is that? This? Is that C? That's not patio. That's lawn. That's
No.
C.
No. See, I'm on the site plan. I'm not on the.
You're on the site plan. Let me go back to the site plan. Well, that's the area to walk around the pool. Here's the corner of the pool. It's right on the buffer.
Yeah, it's wider.
Well, it's not that wide. It's remember the last time we were before you guys, it came all the way to here.
No, I know that.
And you asked us to reduce it. So, I think we made a good compromise, to take that out. And, you still need to have circulation and, a chair here and there. And, we don't have much patio at all on this side.
Well, you got plenty, you got a table and 3 chairs on one side. You got a bunch of chaise lounges across. You could cut it down so that the width matches the width of the patio on the other side. Right? And it still would be kind of symmetrical.
Yeah, but this is the eastern side, and this is, the folks who are the sun folks. This is the side we always like to take the eastern side, and
Well, I
set up the
understand. So
chairs, lounging areas, and
you got 5 chaise lounges
they've got
in there that wouldn't be disturbed.
Got a big family. They've got grandchildren, and
Eric.
we're trying to accommodate everybody. I mean, you can make it less, but it seems that we've got a good mitigation plan in place. We've got the stormwater handled. It would seem, kind of normal and customary to have a pool deck that's, kind of functional for the,
It would certainly, it could be cut back and still be eminently functional.
To what?
My other question is the propane tank. Where is that? And is
that's here. That's here. And the reason why it's here is because that's where the old one is right now. So we got to dig up the old one. We're going to have a disturbance. We might as well put the new one right in the same hole.
So there's already a tank in that
Yes.
same location.
Correct.
Okay. Now that does make sense. We're at a loss tonight, Jared, because we don't have our engineer here with us. David isn't here.
Well, I mean, David, I recall I think it was you and David who was asked us to make that patio smaller, and we did. So we thought we made a good compromise and still trying to get something workable for the owners. I mean, I guess we could, shave it down some more, but.
Just by shaving it down a little more, what is that accomplishing, John? Just for my.
Well, it's just decreasing the area of the disturbance of the buffer.
I know, but so you're talking about cutting like the corner where C is, where that C, like just
Yeah,
taking
not
off that.
not necessarily diagonally, but just taking that, extending that. I guess it's an east-west line
Mhm.
at the top, just extending that, maybe up to the buffer line.
Look at how close you are now to circulate around the pool.
Well, you're at the same width as you are on the other side of the pool. That's what I'm saying. You could make it symmetrical. So that aesthetically it would look,
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't have enough. I don't think I have enough experience to say, how much that corner and that stuff really makes more of an impact. I'm sort of asking the question.
It's obviously.
So John, now what you're saying, take this line here and then project this up here and then come back that way.
Right.
Take out that. All right. I don't think that's the killer. I think that's, if we could, I mean, obviously it's a shame the Bargs aren't here, but I think the Bargs can live with that. So we'll go like this. We'll extend this to the buffer line, and then we'll bring this one up to the buffer line, and we'll hold whatever width this is, we'll hold right here.
Yes.
Yeah, we could do that.
Okay. Good. Ivan?
I think David would be very happy, John. No, and I think you've done a really nice job, Jerry, of getting the entire pool into you know, the permitted, you know, building envelope, and of, you know, taking out a couple of the unnecessary pieces of patio that we've pointed out. I think you've been very responsive to the concerns that we've expressed. I understand where Jonathan's coming from, that he really wants to do all he can to minimize the impact, which is as he should. But I don't want to be lost in this, that you guys really have been very responsive to the board's comments.
No, you have, obviously, and yeah, I'm particularly impressed by the idea that you guys had with the driveway. It's a very elegant, very elegant solution to what was a tough problem in terms of the way things were arranged in the area where the steps are.
And expensive. Unfortunately.
Okay.
So what we still need to do is, you know, we were hoping to get, get to a point with the board that, you know, we have a site plan that works, and then, you know, we were going to go flesh out the mitigation plan.
Right.
I'm going to have Steve Coleman help me with that. So that is the next thing we need to do. You know, is that something that we need to come back to the board for? Is that something we could talk?
Well, we can't issue a final permit until, you know, we know that you're okay with the zoning board too. So.
And how does that work? Will the zoning board entertain us if we don't have the wetland permit, or do we have to go get the variance first before you can approve it?
Well, I think you have to go at least apply for the variance, and, you know, in the course of the application process with the zoning board, you know, you can let them know, and Dennis will corroborate if asked, you know, that we are, you know, once you flesh out the mitigation, make the tweaks that we've talked about, you know, that the ERB is comfortable, you know, in concept, and assuming that zoning board is willing to go along with the variance, we would be willing to issue the permit.
Okay. I'll get it on the next agenda, next available agenda.
Good. Good. And, you know, if Dennis wants us to take another look at the final plan that you develop with him with the mitigation, we're happy to do that. Otherwise, I think, you know, we'd also be happy to leave it to him, and then see this again only once, you know, we're in a position to absolutely issue the permit, because, you know, you're in good shape with the zoning board too.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you. It's going to be a great looking pool.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, bye-bye.
Good night.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.
So that's it.
That's it. Steve didn't even say hi.
We heard a lot from whatever was going on in the background of his
Yeah,
house.
exactly.
Dennis, is that your predecessor looking over your shoulder? Is that how it felt?
Well, I don't know, I might have mentioned this before. At, I guess, my second interview, these are the plans that Steve pulled out as part of the interview, not the ones submitted tonight, but it was this project. And might have been the second go around of, you know, how to approve permit. This is, you know, these are examples of plans. And I said, how come they don't turn the pool 90 degrees to avoid? And he goes, yeah, that's kind of where everybody else was going. So we knew we were of like minds at that point. So I think it helped get me hired.
Good. Good. All right. I guess that's it, unless anybody else has anything they want to raise, discuss.
Yeah, looks good.
No?
Good work, everyone.
No,
Good. Good. So somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
motion to adjourn. Oh, nobody got
Second.
car sick? while I was driving.
No, did you?
No, I did it all. I did it all, picking up the kid and coming back from Armonk, and I'm still here, so.
Very
This
impressive.
is technology in
Very impressive.
2020.
And we maintained a quorum throughout. Very
Yes.
impressive.
Yeah, thanks. Ted.
Exactly. That was the goal, right?
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Ted. We appreciate it.
All right, I second the motion.
Second the motion. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No.
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
thanks, guys. We'll see
Good
you.
night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. We're
Bye.
adjourned.